This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show from the Super Crowd. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're so excited today. I want to welcome the new people to our audience. Our audience is really growing, and it's just so exciting to see new people watching every week. I want to welcome you and encourage you to come back and watch more episodes. What we're doing at the Superpowers for Good show is we're working to support social entrepreneurs and impact investors. We're trying to support diverse and underrepresented founders, veterans, and others who are sometimes overlooked in our communities and help them to access the capital they need. And we like to support everyone on their journey toward investing. So we've got, for these purposes, golly, just the greatest guest today. Marcia Dawood is with us, and she sits on an SEC advisory panel for small businesses and is really, she's an author and a proven human being. We're so excited to have her on the show. Please join me in welcoming now Marcia Dawood. Marcia, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. You're a big deal. We recognize this, and we're excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about your work with the SEC to help us put you in the proper perspective.
Okay, so we have to go back a little bit, though, before we get to the SEC. So I've been an angel investor for a little over 12 years, and I chaired the board of the Angel Capital Association, which is the professional society of angel investors here in the U.S., and we also have some global partners as well. So the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, it's a mouthful, where I sit on that committee, and I also serve as the vice chair. We are looking to see what we can do to help influence the Securities and Exchange Commission to make sure that small business gets their voice heard. Essentially, we want to see capital formation happening so that these small businesses can thrive. So the committee is made up of about 20 of us, and we all come from small business in a little bit of a different way. In fact, one of the people on the committee with me, George Cook, is also the CEO of Honeycomb Credit, which is a debt crowdfunding platform. So very, very diverse group of people and always looking at things from different angles.
Yeah, George is a great human being. I hope you'll get to know him well if you haven't already.
He's amazing.
Great guy. I've known him for 6 or 7 years now, 8 years, and yeah, just a great human being. And Honeycomb Credit is really kicking butt and taking names these days. It's exciting to see the number of offerings. And this week, every week on our newsletter, we publish a list of all the new impact offerings, and Honeycomb is always represented, but I think this was the first time they really didn't just get represented, they dominated the list. Most of the offerings with an impact connection in the whole country were on George's portal. So very cool. So I'm so excited that you're having the opportunity to connect with George. I apologize for that distraction, but that's such a fun connection. Yeah. You've written a book, Do Good While Doing Well. Tell us about the book.
All right. So back to in 2012, I was invited to an angel investing meeting, and I thought, cool. Wait a minute. What's that? What is angel investing? And I thought it was for the rich, the well-connected, people who had a finance degree. It certainly wasn't for me. I didn't know anything about it. But I was invited to a meeting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, And that's one of the reasons why I know George so well, because he's in Pittsburgh too. We have a lot of Pittsburgh connections. And I thought, well, I'm living in Pittsburgh. Like, what could really be happening here as far as entrepreneurship? And I come to find out that there's quite a bit happening in every city, in every town, really all over the world. And I was so fascinated. I had been working in corporate America, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm doing, what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm kind of doing the same thing every day and thinking maybe I'll get different results. But I go to this angel investing meeting and I start hearing about entrepreneurs and what they're working on, innovation, changes that they want to see in the world. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, where have I been? I've been living under a rock. I had no idea this was going on. And I was just so fascinated to meet different entrepreneurs, see the types of technologies that they were building and the things they were working on, and how they got to scale their companies. And I thought, I can be a part of this. I had no idea. So I learned over time. And that's when I went on to be on the board of the Angel Capital Association. I met other angel investors from all over the world. And I started to realize, hey, this really could be for everyone. But then in 2016, the Securities and Exchange Commission changed the rules, and then everybody could invest through equity crowdfunding for as little as $50. But that isn't talked about very often. And so a lot of people still think, well, this is definitely not accessible to me. I have to be, very, very wealthy, fly in a private plane. I mean, that's kind of what we see on TV. That lets us believe that. And I completely understand why people believe that. But if we can start to build an awareness and start to get more people to realize that they can be a part of this, imagine the change we're going to start to see in the world.
That is so true. That is so true, and so exciting to think about the accessibility that we have now with crowdfunding, investing, and one of the key things that I would ask you just to address, but to confirm in people's minds, this is a regulated marketplace. The SEC, where you advise, that's why you and George are there, because this isn't a free-for-all. It's not an unregulated marketplace like Kickstarter or Indiegogo. This is different. Tell us about the regulatory structure.
Sure. So there's, as you just mentioned, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, that's a type of crowdfunding. That's a rewards-based crowdfunding. And in my book, I actually go into quite a bit of detail to explain to people the differences. You may have also, your viewers or audience may have also heard about GoFundMe, which is a donation-based crowdfunding. And so with equity crowdfunding and debt crowdfunding, like we just talked about with Honeycomb Credit, there is a lot of regulatory in place. There are certain limits on the amount of money that can be invested into each company. And there's limits on the amount of funding that can be put forth by each individual investor. But the one thing that I really like, the one regulation that people don't talk about that often, is that on these platforms, and for equity crowdfunding, the three main players that have the market share are Republic, WeFunder, and StartEngine. And if you go onto their platforms, they will all look relatively similar with the information that is disclosed to the potential investors or anybody that's looking at that particular offering. And what I love about this is that the CEO or whoever is managing that particular offering at the company level, they cannot have a conversation or correspond with anybody off of the platform. So Devin, for example, you couldn't go to one of them and say, hey, I've got a question. Hey, why don't you just tell me a little bit more than you told somebody else? That can't happen. So everything is disclosed on the platform, and you can get some really interesting information about the company in the Q&A section, which sometimes people don't scroll all the way down to that part to read, but you will see that all of the questions are asked there, and then you will see the answers by the company. And I just think that's a very valuable place that people can go to even get more information about the companies that they're looking at potentially backing.
It is so cool to see that this has moved from the really elite,
Yes.
the exclusive, the wealthy, to the very most ordinary. You talked about a minimum investment of $50. Of course, that's not in the statute, and there are two websites I love that allow for $10 minimum investments. I once did 5. And
Wow.
I saw one deal once for one. The minimum was $1. It's
Oh my
crazy.
goodness.
So
It's crazy.
anybody can play. So
That's right.
help us understand. I want you to just take a minute. I'm hoping that there are some human beings out there, and we have a lot of women who watch the show. And
Mhm.
I suspect a lot of women that watch the show think Devin's not really talking to me. And they're going to listen to you, Marcia. They're going to say, Marcia's talking to me. Why should how should someone like make their first investment? How do you get over that hurdle to go from 0 to 1? It's a big hurdle, I think. It's bigger than it seems like it should be. Help someone walk over that hurdle.
Yeah. And I know for me, I felt that way too when I first started. And I also learned, and one of the things that I was really just so surprised by is how little funding goes to female founders. So I thought to myself, wait a minute, women, we're like 50% of the population, but we're only getting 2 to 3% of the funding. So something has to change here. And if we can get more people, to your point, Evan, if we can get more people involved, get more people to back these companies, that's going to change. So if you are somebody who's thinking, I would like to be able to make change in the world, I want to be the change I want to see in the world, but wait a minute, how can I, as one person, really do that? Well, this is a way to do that. And I love the fact that crowdfunding offers these platforms that you can literally just look around. You don't have to do anything. In fact, I would encourage everybody, don't do anything quite yet. Look around, take your time, start to realize like some of the similarities, some of the differences of in the companies, their offerings, the things that they're trying to accomplish and the change they're trying to make in the world. See if that aligns with your values and see if it aligns with what it is that you would like to invest in, and then make a decision to back one of these companies, because there's so many out there that are doing incredible things to change our health, our planet, people. It's amazing.
Yeah, this is such exciting stuff, and I really appreciate you joining me, Marcia. We've got to take a quick break, if you'll forgive me, but folks, I'm here with Marcia Dawood, and let me just make this really clear. She's a big deal. And we are so lucky to have her on the show today. My gosh, she's the author of Doing Good While Doing Well. Great book. She is also sits on the SEC Small Business Advisory Board. She's a deeply experienced angel investor. We've learned so much from her. When we come back, though, we're going to shift gears and talk to her about her superpowers. So stick around. I don't want you to miss this.
Download a free copy of How to Make Money with Impact Crowdfunding, the book Sarah Hanks describes as
a fantastic overview, not just of crowdfunding investing, but of investing in general.
Andrew Savickas raved,
"This book offers unparalleled insights for anyone looking to make a difference."
Scan the QR code to get your copy.
Ready to take your small business to the next level? Honeycomb Credit empowers diverse entrepreneurs by connecting you with community-driven funding. Build customer relationships, amplify your brand, and grow with those who believe in you. Honeycomb Credit, where your community invests in you.
Scan the QR code to start today.
Join the Impact Crowdfunding movement. Get Superpowers for Good, your free daily newsletter with exclusive video replays, a podcast, and the latest investment opportunities open to everyone. Join the super crowd. Scan now so you can learn to make money while you make a difference.
Welcome back. I just feel so lucky today. We've got Marcia Dawood with us today. Big time angel investor, sits on the SEC Small Business Advisory Board, author of Doing Good While Doing Well. I hope I got that right, Marcia. But listen, we're going to shift gears now, talk to her about her superpowers. So stick around. You don't want to miss this discussion. Marcia, you really are a big deal. And we are grateful that you would make time to chat with us today. As you think about your life, your career, and what has enabled your success, you reflect, what is your superpower?
Okay, so I'm I'm going to actually give you two, and it's basically because they were pointed out to me as time went on. But one of them is I am quite resourceful. So if something happens and for example, let me give that a different example. Well, when I was in sales, I was a pretty good salesperson. So I would get a lot of people who would want to take assessments so that they could try to clone me, I guess, or they like clone the skills that I had in order to sell. So at one point, somebody does one of these assessments and they come back and they say to me, if I was in a burning building, I would want to be standing right next to you. That's what your assessment told me. And so they basically were telling me, hey, you're pretty resourceful. If something bad happens or you need something or something needs to be kind of like glued back together, I was a little bit like the duct tape for all that, right? So resourcefulness was always something that I knew was a superpower of mine. And I think that really did help me along the way as I was in my corporate career and then, going into angel investing and helping entrepreneurs and, trying to piece things together. But then even more recently, somebody actually said to me, one of the things that you're really good at is being decisive. And I thought about that for a while and I was like, I don't know that that is a word that I would have picked like right out, randomly. However, recently I had to do this move and things had to happen very quickly. And I needed a little bit of stuff for the apartment. And I went into a store and I was just like, and I'll take that and that and that and that. And did it. And then like, boom, and it was done. And so when I was relaying this story to a friend of mine, she was like, you are just so good at this because you're so decisive. And then I thought to myself, resourcefulness and decisiveness. I guess when you definitely put those two together, it's kind of like my husband has a lot of the same qualities. So you should see us go to the supermarket. It's hilarious. It's like, I'm like, you take the meat off, I'll take the tip. And then we have to have a little bit of a competition over who's going to get what and how fast can we get back to this car, those types of things. So I guess in a way, it can help. Sometimes I think I need to calm down a little bit too. So there's that.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by both of these superpowers, but I think I want to drill down a little bit on decisiveness because I think that it's just critical. I think there's a group of people who are like you naturally, right? They're able to just make decisions and move forward with confidence. And others get bogged down in the analysis. We sometimes joke about analysis paralysis, and
that's right.
Organizations especially can get bogged down in this, where the inertia of the analysis overwhelms the decision-making process. How would you coach someone to be more decisive? How do you build that skill if it's not something that is natural for you?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, sometimes I think my decisiveness is a little too much. So you can go a little too far, but I would say that, in some cases, I've seen companies, especially startup companies, fail because they haven't been decisive enough. They think, oh, well, I need my product or whatever it is I'm working on. I need it to be perfect. It needs to look beautiful before I show it to the world, before I give it to, my first customer, or before I even have customers tell me what they would or wouldn't like about it. But that's actually the opposite of what you'd want to do. You really want to create something, get that feedback, get your customers talking about it. And, we talk about that MVP, like the minimum viable product. Let's get it out there so that we can get it into the world. And I think just having examples and being able to tell stories about companies who've been able to do that and being able to pivot and make decisions. I'll give you an example. There's a company called Joylux, and their CEO on March 15th, 2020, we all kind of can remember that right around that time, what we all doing? We were all going into lockdown over the pandemic. And she saw that something bad was happening and something was going to disrupt her business. And she went on to gather her current investors together, her potential investors, and pivot her company in a very short period of time, make sure that she had enough cash so that she didn't run out of money during the time that, things were very crazy in 2020, and was able to have her business thrive. And those are the types of decisions, those are the moments when decisiveness can just be so incredibly critical. Because I watched other companies who were like, well, the pandemic, if you remember, people said, oh, the pandemic, it's only going to be a week or 2 weeks, a month, oh, it'll be over by July, it'll be over by November, and this went on and on and on, and it wasn't ending. And so if you aren't the type of CEO, the type of business person who can make those decisions, then, those are the companies that I didn't see really do well during that time.
I wonder if we could get another specific example. You've given us some great little anecdotes, but I wonder if you could give us another one that illustrates your decision-making capacity. I'm intrigued by this because it is so vitally important. Can you think of another story?
Let's see. Personally, because of my husband's job, we've had to live in between 2010 and 2020. We lived in Pittsburgh, New York City, San Francisco, Dallas, and Charlotte, North Carolina. So 5 major cities in 10 years. And each of those times we lived in an apartment because we would just be at the apartment, and we had my stepkids and family and everything was back in Charlotte. But we would have to have a place to live. And in a lot of those cases, I would make the decision in less than a day. I would go to the city, I would look online a little bit, and then I would figure out kind of where we wanted to be, what we wanted, and boom, 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 we're done. So there were, personally, a lot of times where I had to make some quick decisions. And to me, it was, I think sometimes you can make decisions a little bit too fast, but I also think that you make the decisions that you feel are right, and then you own the decision. So if I was second guessing myself and saying, maybe I don't like this apartment or whatever, from that example, I made the decision and I'm owning the decision, and I loved all the places that we lived. And I think part of that was because when I made the decision, it was mine to make.
Yeah. Give us some quick tips for being better decision makers.
Better decision makers. Well, first of all, I think you need to know what it is that you want to make a decision about. First of all, right? I know that sounds obvious, but are you making a decision about something that's personal to just you? Does it affect others? All of the take into consideration all of the parties involved. But also, figure out what's important to you. In some cases, I've made decisions where it was something that was very important to me, and it was something that was very impactful, like where we were going to live. But in some cases, I might make a decision and it wasn't something that had, extreme value. So, I wasn't really totally overwhelmed by the outcome. Like if it didn't work out that well, it wasn't that big of a deal. So I think a lot of it has to do with emotion, and there is emotion involved in decision making. But again, back to know what it is that you really want and care about, and make those decisions that are best for everyone involved. And that's what I really see a lot of the time with entrepreneurs is they're making decisions for their business, for themselves, for their team, and surrounding yourself with people who can not just make decisions with you, but also be the balance of the different types of personalities and the different types of people that make up the team. And sometimes I feel like that's something that some CEOs or some business leaders, they don't take into consideration all of the different types of people that really build a team. And so when we talk about inclusion and diversity of a team, I love to talk about all the things that make a team great because of that diversity. And that could be diversity of thought, diversity of location, diversity of where people grew up, or the type of education that they have, the type of experience that they've had in business. All of those things can help to make a great team. And that together can make people, I think, feel more comfortable about decisions they're making, especially when they're communicating it to each other and they're making basically better decisions as a team.
Fantastic. Marcia, as we wrap up now, I know everyone who watches is going to want to reach out to you. So tell us what the protocol is. How do people follow you on social media, et cetera? And of course, people want to get your book. How do people get your book?
Yes, absolutely. You can go right to my website, Marcia Dawood, MarciaDawood.com. Everything's on my website. I do have a podcast also called The Angel Next Door, trying to demystify everything about angel investing. I have a lot of angel investors, potential angel investors that listen, but also a lot of founders because they want to get inside the head of angel investors and learn all about the fundraising process. So lots and lots of things on there. And on the website, you can also find the book, and a lot of different resources from the book are free on the website as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you every success with your book and sharing the message that everyone can be an angel investor for impact.